Is Sega part of your childhood memories? I remember watching my classmates play the classic Sega game Sonic the Hedgehog during childhood. It didn't seem like a game made by Japanese creators. At the time, there was a curious question. Was this company from Japan or the United States? Among Game Boy, Switch from Nintendo, PlayStation from Sony, I chose Sega. I wanted to know why it had a touch of American flair and excelled at arcade games. Not only did young boys benefit from Sega, but Japanese female students also enjoyed taking group photos with the help of Sega's involvement in developing sticker photo machines. The most unfortunate thing is that a series of failures led this entertainment company to withdraw from the home video game console manufacturing business. Director Akito from Japan introduces you to Sega, which has undergone multiple mergers, spin-offs, and restructurings. Its roots can be traced back to the 1940s in Hawaii, 40 years before the launch of its first home video game console. During the Mega Drive era, Sega once surpassed Nintendo. Let's delve into the success story that led to this glorious era. Sega has often been compared to Nintendo in the home video game console market. Nintendo had the upper hand. Sega's 1998 release of the Dreamcast couldn't turn the tide. As a result, Sega couldn't hold on and ultimately withdrew from the market in 2001, no longer developing or selling consoles. Gamers from the 1990s and 2000s might associate Sega with failure. In the first episode of the Sega Special, I aim to clarify this classic company's name, explore why it excelled in arcade games, and prepare for future discussions. We'll look into why they entered the home video game console market and competed with Nintendo to the death. Nintendo was established in 1889, but Sega's history is also long, dating back to 1934. Surprisingly, the stage wasn't set in Japan but in Los Angeles, USA. The company wasn't named Sega but Standard Games. Photos from 1934 can't be found, but there is a picture of a slot machine that Sega released in the 1950s. Looking closely at the second black machine on the right, you'll see the word Sega printed on it. This slot machine is called the Diamond 3-Star. The black and white image is a promotional flyer, not for consumers, but for businesses. You can see the product name Diamond 3-Star and note the line at the bottom. Manufactured by Service Games Japan Incorporated. It turns out it was produced in Japan. The world saw dramatic changes from the 1930s to the 1950s. Service Games was the predecessor of Sega, and the 1934 company Standard Games was also a precursor to Sega. Unlike Nintendo, Sega underwent multiple splits, mergers, and name changes, causing confusion and making it difficult to trace its story. This video will explain the evolution of the company's form and name. In the early days of Standard Games, games didn't refer to electronic games nor mechanical arcade games like boxing machines. Instead, it referred to slot machines with gambling elements, as games also carried the meaning of gambling. Standard Games founder, Irving Bromberg, had a previous company that sold gaming machines. In 1932, he advertised a product called Whirl Around. In 1945, Irving sold his company and later established another company in Hawaii called Service Games, along with his son Martin Bromberg and friend James Humpert. Pay attention to the company name. If you combine the first two letters of each word, you get Sega. The Sega on the Diamond 3-Star was not the official company name. It could be considered an abbreviation for Service Games. Standard Games founder, Irving Bromberg, started selling pinball machines and later expanded into slot machines. Both had entertainment machines in common and operated by inserting coins. He initially ran his business in New York, with advertisements indicating his company was located in Brooklyn, New York. However, in 1934, he moved to Los Angeles on the West Coast. The exact reason is unknown, but it is speculated that New York's newly elected mayor, LaGuardia, was about to ban slot machines with gambling elements. After Irving moved to the West Coast, slot machines were indeed prohibited in New York. Having clarified the origins of standard games and its founder Irving Bromberg, we'll now look at the subsequent appearance of service games, which is the history officially recognized by Sega. Standard games can be considered a prelude to Sega and the beginning of Sega's destiny to undergo mergers, splits, and name changes. While standard games targeted the general public, service games catered to the U.S. military. Service refers to military service serving in the armed forces. In 1951, the U.S. government enacted the Transportation of Gambling Devices Act. Slot machines with gambling elements gradually became banned in certain states, putting service games at survival risk. The connection between service games and Japan was also related to the war's end. After the Allied forces occupied Japan, specifically the U.S. military, many American soldiers were stationed at Japanese bases. Martin, one of the founders of service games, saw this as an opportunity. He collected slot machines that had been discarded by other companies due to their illegality in some U.S. states and exported them under the company's own brand to Japan, bypassing U.S. legal restrictions. This marked the beginning of Sega's chapter in Japan. However, only half of this chapter was written, with the remaining half involving new players, Lemaire and Stewart. Lemaire and Stewart were two employees of service games who were sent to work in Japan in 1952. Raymond Lemaire was a mechanical technician, and Richard Stewart was a salesman. They established a Japanese company called Lemaire and Stewart, which imported American entertainment machines and jukeboxes into Japan. The main sales target was U.S. military bases in Japan. Service games exported from the U.S. to Japan, and Lemaire and Stewart imported from the U.S. to Japan, collaborating seamlessly. This laid a solid foundation for Sega's future business endeavors. Currently, the company's origin is attributed to Lemaire and Stewart importing jukeboxes on Sega's Japanese website. This can be a bit confusing, but as long as you remember the keywords service games and jukeboxes, you'll be fine. They were also responsible for running the Japanese company Service Games of Japan. Entering the 1950s, Elvis Presley's popularity swept the globe, leading to the production and sales of jukeboxes. Lemaire and Stewart's business was doing well. Several gaming and entertainment companies were involved in the jukebox trade, such as Title Trading, now known as Title, V&V Hi-Fi Trading Company, which would later merge with Sega, and Universal, which is now known as Universal Entertainment. Additionally, Kagema Sakozuki, who was in charge of the jukebox department, had a company, would later establish the video game and entertainment company Konami. Service Games not only engaged in trade but also expanded its business. In 1957, after acquiring rights from a large American slot machine manufacturer, they released their first Sega-branded slot machine, Sega Bell. The name Sega can be found on the machine, and it is a slot machine. However, the company now officially emphasizes jukeboxes as their origin rather than slot machines. Sega Bell was sold at U.S. military bases in the Pacific region, including those in Okinawa, under American rule. The previously mentioned Diamond 3-Star was a product that came after Sega Bell. It is unclear why, but in 1960, Service Games of Japan was dissolved and split into two companies. Nihon Goraku Busen, responsible for sales and rentals, and Nihon Kikai Seijo, which handled production. Service Games temporarily disappeared in name, and Nihon Kikai Seijo developed the company's first original jukebox, named Sega 1000. The Japanese Sega official website cites this jukebox as the origin of the company's name. Nihon Kekai Seijo and Nihon Goraku Busen were two companies closely related to the birth of the company Sega, along with another individual, David Rosen. In the early 1950s, during the Korean War, Rosen was stationed in Japan as a member of the U.S. Air Force. After leaving the military, he established Rosen Enterprises in the United States. He fell in love with Japan during his stay and married a Japanese woman, Masako Fujisaki. Rosen Enterprises was a trading company that exported machines from the United States, including instant picture ID booths. Rosen's business was successful, and as Japan's economy rapidly grew during the Korean War, he decided to expand his business by importing electromechanical game machines from the United States. The company also began developing its own arcade games. For example, there are the boxing machines mentioned earlier, as well as the crocodile hitting machines, and so on, led by a technical team headed by Suzuki Hisashi. In 1964, Nihon Kekai Seijo and Nihon Goraku Busen merged, and the company continued to operate under the name Nihon Goraku Busen. The following year, in 1965, Nihon Goraku Busen merged with Rosen Enterprises to form Sega Enterprises, with Rosen as president. In 1966, they released the popular arcade game Periscope, which Rosen was involved in designing. Players aimed at moving ships and fired to sink them. This game solidified Sega's position as a leading arcade game manufacturer and was exported to countries like the United States. According to the official Sega website, Periscope can no longer be found in Japan. A year earlier, in 1965, Nakamura Amusement Machine Manufacturing Company, the predecessor of Namco, released an arcade game with a similar design and gameplay called Periscope. Whether this was a coincidence or plagiarism, it is an exciting topic for further discussion. Remember, Nintendo released a toy called Ultrascope in 1971, but one was an arcade game, and the other was a toy, each with its own unique features. Sega released various mechanical arcade games, including basketball, rifleman, and helicopter. Following the success of their arcade games, Sega expanded into the game center business, initially in Tokyo's Hibiya and Osaka's Umeda. In 1968, they opened a large game center in Yokohama Sakuragi-cho, located on the 7th floor of the Sakuragi-cho Golden Center, covering an area of 1,500 square meters. This building has now become Sakuragi-cho City. At this point, the audience may understand why Sega has an American flavor. The company originated in the United States, and its early management team comprised Americans. After moving to Japan, some documents were in English, and employees held Christmas parties. By the late 1960s, Sega began selling electromechanical games, and the company was developing smoothly. President Rosen contemplated taking the company public but hesitated and never executed the plan. In 1969, he sold the company to the American conglomerate Gulf and Western. However, Sega didn't disappear. It became one of its subsidiaries. Other subsidiaries included Paramount Pictures. Gulf and Western broadened Sega's horizons. Sega began importing American pinball machines, such as Bally's King Tute, and later started producing their own. The first in-house pinball machine, Winner, was released in 1972. In the 1970s, two heroes joined Sega. One of them, Hayao Nakayama, would later become the president and be introduced in the next episode. The other, Hideki Sato, joined the company in 1971 and later earned the nickname Father of Sega Game Console. At that time, Sega's office was located in Odori, Tokyo. When taking the Kikyu line to Haneda Airport, one would pass Odori Station. Sato attended the Tokyo Metropolitan Technical College, initially confident and eager to join the Japan Overseas Cooperation Volunteers. However, he wasn't hired due to an inappropriate response during an interview. As graduation approached, Sato, who enjoyed assembling plastic models, urgently looked for work and applied to toy company to me over the phone, only to find that the deadline had already passed. The college Sato attended was located in Samezu, and Sega was nearby. Instead of calling, he decided to go directly to the company to try his luck. At that time, the Human Resources Department had already completed hiring new graduates without further work. Sato met the HR section chief, who had graduated from a metropolitan university just like Sato. As a result, Sato was allowed to tour the company and factory. After the tour, he expressed his interest in development. The head of the development department met with him and asked if he had any issues with using saws and drills. That's how Hideki Sato successfully joined Sega. He was involved in the production of all of Sega's home gaming consoles, from the very first SC-1000 in 1983 to the final Dreamcast, which would be introduced one by one later. Before the first home console was born in 1983, he was part of the pinball machine team, which had only 2 other colleagues. At that time, American pinball machines were slower. He was responsible for modifying them by adding electromagnets to enhance the sense of speed and incorporating additional features to increase excitement. When a prototype did not produce satisfactory results, they let other employees try it, exchange ideas, and work together to create a more exciting pinball machine. In 1972, the year after Hideki Sato joined the company, he encountered something surprising. Atari released the arcade video game Pong, similar to air hockey found in Japanese arcades today. Sega's president, Rosen, brought Pong from the United States to the Sega development department and said it was popular in America. When Sato tried the game, he was amazed that a television meant for viewing could be used for interactive gameplay and that the ball would speed up over time, increasing the difficulty. Rosen believed Pong would also become a massive hit in Japan, so he ordered Sega to develop its own arcade video game. Sato and his colleagues worked together to study and mimic Atari's Pong's electronic circuitry and figure out how to display images on a television screen. They understood how to make the ball move horizontally and vertically, and then had to figure out how to make it move diagonally and change its speed. They learned how to design their electronic circuits. In less than a year, in July 1973, they released Sega's first arcade video game, Pong-Tron. This game combined the efforts of Sato's and other researchers' efforts and Sega's long-standing expertise in producing arcade games. Sato brought the company's microcomputers home, studied electronic technology magazines, and went to Akihabara to purchase keyboards, base plates, and other components. After numerous attempts and failures, he discovered the tricks. Though he became adept at the technical aspects, he believed creativity was more important than technology. For example, Title's 1978 release of Space Invaders was not technologically difficult. Still, its success and social phenomenon were due to its creativity. While Nintendo had Gunpei Yokoi and later Masayuki Uemura, Sega had Hideki Sato and Hayao Nakayama, who participated in creating the classic arcade racing video game Monaco GP. These 2 future presidents led Sega to the top of the gaming industry with arcade video games.